Mishmin Tuhis, Conracut Canyon, Coyote Woman, Sarah's Roots. I currently am in Mutsun Ohlone territory. I identify as a Mutsun Ohlone community member. I am daughter of tribal chairwoman Anne Marie Sayers of Indian Canyon Nation. And I want to share the importance of what it means to acknowledge Indigenous protocol by becoming familiar with the lands that we are on, of these spaces and places in today's post-colonial settler environment. How can we come together in community and honor truth and history, all layers, and through honoring being in community with each other? Because when we think about it, when we honor our elders and our ancestors, we all come from Indigenous lineages, from the land of our ancestors. So it's important that when we travel and wherever we go, we can acknowledge that there have been Indigenous peoples, original stewards, that have tended and maintained the land since time immemorial. And it's called Indigenous protocol. And my community taught me to acknowledge Indigenous protocol and to offer a land acknowledgement is to be in community. My mother and my grandmother believe that when song, ceremony, and dancing stops, so does the earth. I too believe that. So I would like to offer a grandmother's song to honor our grandmothers, their grandmothers, and in all Mother Earth. For without her and without them, we would not be here. We share this time and space together for a reason. So it's with that humility, that gratitude, that present-mindedness that I offer this song here in this space. And I will use my regalia because Indigenous peoples, we don't wear costumes. And you are welcome to offer your words of affirmation at the end of the song, the end of a prayer. In my community, we say, oh, and you are more than welcome to join me at the end of the song by saying, oh, and sending those prayers out in a good way. But this is Canyon's grandmother's song. Moi moi o kawana, moi moi o ka, moi moi na ho, moi moi o ka, moi moi o ne ya konale, moi moi hey o konale, moi moi o kawana, moi moi o ka. Moi moi na ho, moi moi o ko, moi moi o ne ya konale, moi moi o konale, moi moi o kawana, moi moi o ko, moi moi na ho, moi moi o ko. Moi moi o ne ya konale, moi moi hey o konale. No son and oh and a big oh.
Oh.
Thank you, everyone, for honoring Native land and coming together in community. May we all think about and consider being good ancestors in training. We are here together, and it's really important. Thank you all.
Thank you, sister. Tonight, we are gathered in beloved community to create a most sacred space of words and song, of deep sorrow and righteous anger, of kinship and healing. May all gathered find their words with love and in the spirit of working toward healing. May the singers find the notes to lift up their voices in love. May the communities come together to find a path to healing. As we enter this sacred time to honor our newest ancestors, taken before their times, we will invoke the spirits of the four corners, the sky, and the earth. Great Eagle of the East, We ask you to bring your medicine of the yellow fire and source of life to this sacred time and space. May your warmth and light remind us to honor the holy in all. Great buffalo of the south, we ask you to bring your medicine of the red earth and the source of self-knowledge and growth to this sacred time and space. May your very lifeblood remind us to honor the holy in all. Great coyote of the west, we ask you to bring your medicine of the black water and the source of emotional development to this sacred time and space. May your essential guidance toward our fulfillment of our life's purposes remind us to honor the holy in all. Great Bear of the North, we ask you to bring your medicine of the white wind and the source of the wisdom of the ages to this sacred time and space. May your life-giving force of reflection and connection to the spiritual remind us to honor the holy in all. Great Father Sky and Mother Earth, we ask you to bring your medicine of the blue heavens and this green world to this sacred time and space. You are our connection to the Great Spirit and to ourselves. May that remind us to honor the holy in all. Our chalice is lit. And now we are going to share the names and the faces of those we have lost. we're going to have a moment to listen to another song that is a lamentation and a Japanese libation, called Lark Don't Cry. And this was performed and recorded last year for the families who practice on the equinox, the pouring of libations at their family grave sites. And this is also from Yuri Yamamoto.
ひばり泣くなよ遠いお空は悲しいよ父さん母さんいたきりひばり泣くなよ麦刈る頃は悲しいよ畑を流れる風ばかりひばり泣くなよ故郷の空は悲しいよみんな優しい人ばかりひばり泣くなよ曇りの空は悲しいよお日さま消えずにいておくれ
Oh, after a prayer of lamentation and a moment of silence, as Reverend Kat has put into the chat, there will be a breakout room for anyone who needs that space. And we will give some time for that before coming back together. The lamentation of the people. Please join me in the spirit of prayer. Breathe and listen. Breathe. Do we hear the lamentation of the people? Of the people whose ancestral lands have been taken? Of the peoples taken from their motherlands? Of the peoples whose lives have been taken due to the evils of the white patriarchy, which spreads its cruel racism because they are Asian, Black, female. Breathe. Listen. Really listen to the grieving. Honor our collective mourning. We know that this isn't the world we have always lived in, but it is the world in which we struggle now. A world in which our Black and brown, Indigenous, Asian, and all our children of color's futures are uncertain. Easy access to weapons, different rules, preferential treatment from law enforcement, preferential treatment in legal systems, all support systems of institutionalized murder of our communities of color. Breathe. Listen. Where do we hear comfort being offered? Where do we hear voices raised in solidarity with us, the Black, brown, Indigenous, people of color, and queer family members? Where do we hear hope? Breathe and listen. Where are those bending the arc towards justice for historical harms done, for generational trauma inflicted, for the current damage being wrought? Who is accompanying us along a shared journey toward wholeness and holiness? Breathe. Where is that somewhere with more respect for Asian women? Where is that somewhere with more love for Black and brown children? Where is that somewhere with more hope for Indigenous women? Where is that somewhere with more peace for trans folk? Where is that somewhere with more joy? Let us breathe together. Let us listen together. Comfort is found in our communities. We are the voices raised in solidarity. We are the world's hope. Ours are the hearts and bodies bending the arc toward justice. We are accompanying those who demand wholeness and holiness. Breathe. Breathe out respect for Asian women. Breathe in community. Breathe out love for Black and brown children. Breathe in solidarity. Breathe out hope for Indigenous women. Breathe in love. Breathe out peace for trans folk. Breathe in and out joy. Breathe. Breathe. We invite you to listen as we try to breathe. I know that Pastor Teresa was going to talk about anti-Asian hate and the problems in this world right now and these shootings. And I don't know the words. To talk about it being anti-Asian, anti-Black, anti any cultural identity that is not European centered. For me, as an Indigenous person, and in the work that I do with the people of color in our faith, to call it hate seems too easy. To call it, it's a complete disregard for our humanity. Where you use our first principle is the inherent worth and dignity of all creatures, of all humans. And to decide that based on cultural roll of the dice of where and how you are born, that people are not worthy. That is a whole other thing than hate. That is a whole other creature than racism. Racism is the structure, is the framework which allows for this evil. We're not supposed to believe in evil and good as Unitarian Universalists, but I'm sorry, I don't know other words for the total disrespect of people and of women, that it's okay for someone, and I had a bad day, who sees these people as the source of their problems. There is an evil, and it hides behind racism and white supremacy systems, and the fact that when it is not a young man of color who is in question, when it is not a young person of color who they think is a threat, when it is a white person who is shooting and killing, they can be apprehended peacefully. That is a kind of evil that is so intrinsically woven into the system. And, if it was once or twice, if they were the odd, then we could say that maybe we're, overthinking this. But it happens time and time again. This country, and I use that term loosely because, like my sister Canyon and I, it is so hard for us to, this is Turtle Island. These are the homes and the lands of so many nations. But this country, it is in a dangerous and precarious place, politically, economically, the tensions, the cultural upheaval, because people of color, we're done playing nice and asking to be respected and honored. We are calling it out. We are calling it in. We don't stand for human rights. We demand it. I am 51 years old. There was so much work done before I was born, and it gave us a foot in the door. And then what happened? We never continued and pushed and demanded change. As a collective, we accepted that change happens slowly. That maybe if we meet people where they are, maybe if you all stay at the table while we abuse you, maybe we'll get there. You have to have patience. You can't speak to us in those tones. You're angry. Damn right, I am angry. The time for political correctness and for being polite and for saying, that might be, some people might think what you said is racist. Some people might be harmed by what you said. That time is over. And I'm looking at you amazing people who have come to stand in solidarity tonight, to pay your honor and your respect. And I am asking you to take that next step, become accomplices. My son and I visited your congregation many years ago, and we came at Christmas time, and you had this beautiful Christmas tree with these ornaments, and you could fulfill these wishes of children in the community. And we were so excited about that. And we bought a bunch of things. We had a little craft thing going on. We bought a bunch of things and donated it. I know that your congregation is trying to do the work. And I know that as non-BIPOC, you are trying to learn. You are trying to step into this. And I ask you to take a next step outside of your comfort zones. You are situated in an area that is got diversity. And I know we are in a quarantine, and I know we can't do the community outreach and the work that we think we can't do, the community and the outreach, but we can. I was going to come and speak to you all in February, and I think I'm coming in May to talk to you about what I'm doing in my community. I live in a neighborhood called City Heights. It has the highest population of immigrants and refugees in San Diego County. More languages are spoken in my neighborhood than the rest of the county. And some point last year, I think it was in the summer, I started putting out cabinets and cupboards and ice chests on the corner of my yard. And we have a free community food pantry. And some people in my congregation donate food or money, blankets, whatever I have a drive. But mostly it's the community itself, community of color and of people who are struggling, who bring what they don't need when they get those boxes of food. And that's what I'm going to be talking to you all about later, how those boxes of food are a problem. They bring what doesn't serve their family and they take what they need. And my rules for the food pantry, it's 24/7. I ask people just don't take the ice chest because then we can't keep food cold. The rules are take what you need. If what you need is everything that is there, then take it. There is abundance. It will be filled up again in another day, and it will be emptied again by the end of the day. That means people are using it. People are getting food. We have a local farmers collective. Every Saturday morning, they have a little stand, and there's a bag of 5 items each, and it is pay what you can. If you can't pay, they'll give you that produce anyway. We go, we pay more than the $5 a bag. We take the bags, we turn around, and we give them to the community. Many people go and just give them money to cover whoever needs the food. These are things that you can do even in the pandemic, that you can continue to do. What can you do about hate and these terrible, terrible crimes that take away these lives? Yeah, we can fight for legislation. I remember not that long ago when it was the March for Our Lives with the youth. And my son was part of the organizing youth here in San Diego and part of that march and part of those speakers. But what happened? We, you, youth, love to say how important it is to listen to the voices of the youth. We give them a stage and then we pat them on the head and send them on their way. Because so many of us don't think these things affect us. They don't affect our families. They don't affect our neighborhoods. But they do. We have another principle that says we are all interconnected. And Indigenous folks, we believe everything is part of the holy and everything is related. I need you all to start to live into that. You need to be able to understand that even these people, even these families in Boulder and Atlanta, they are your families. When something like this happens, how many of you go and look not just at the news stories, not just at the names and the pictures, but at which of these families has had to set up a GoFundMe because the parent has been killed? I believe that someone told me that the police officer who lost his life had 7 children. I know that one of the women who worked at one of the massage parlors had just had a baby this summer. There are so many GoFundMes for these families because there is no system to support these families. Do we think beyond the vigil and the outrage? Do we think about how are we supporting these brothers and sisters and cousins of ours? These orphans, these widows? If we look at our principles, they call us to action. They call us to live these values into the world. They call us to model for the rest of the world. What are you doing to do that in the wake of these tragedies? What privilege of yours are you sharing? Are you using to leverage those who do not have privilege into just a little bit more security, a little more safety? The world needs to change. We know this. This is why we're UUs. This is why we do what we do. But what does that really mean? And what does that really require of each of us? What are our responsibilities? No one can answer that but yourselves. I don't know any of your situations. I will tell you that I have come from a background of poverty. At one point, my children and I were almost homeless because I left an abusive relationship. And there was no network, there was no support, there was no family. And now my husband has privilege of a doctorate and a university job, and financially we're secure enough for me to be able to go and spend money to buy food to feed people I don't even know who takes the food. I have relationships with lots of these people, but there are other people who come in the middle of the night or come when I'm not in the yard. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But we use that privilege that my husband has to do something to make a change. We use the privilege that my son and I have of being speakers, of being advocates, to get involved in things like the Women's March and the Youth March. What are you and your church and your community doing? This vigil is a step. I felt so honored that Pastor Teresa asked me to step in for them today. And what are we going to do tomorrow? What are we going to do the next time this happens? What are we going to do to make sure there are no next times? How many times do the families of victims of mass shootings say, no more, not again? So, an interesting fact. Once quarantine happened and we couldn't go to restaurants, do you know how quickly there was legalization so that you could have your margarita to go? If we can do that, if we can make sure that restaurants can still make their money when you buy dinner and get your drinks to go, it can't be that hard to change the laws around gun ownership. I can get my margarita just as easily as someone can get a gun. That's a problem. I invite you all to take another deep breath. And while we wait for our friends and family in the breakout room, I want you to go ahead and unmute yourself if you feel so inclined, and just share a few words of how you're feeling right now. They don't have to be a sentence. It could just be words, just descriptions.
Disturbed, sad, disappointed, angry.
Thank you, Dennis.
Grateful and challenged. Thank you.
Heartbroken. It's just so ridiculous that we have to watch this happen over and over again. And even in states that have laws to prevent it, and the guys, that can pass these background checks and then get apprehended, no problem. We're blocks away. Someone else is shot dead when they have no reason to be. And just, we're doing a mental assessment. Like, it's just insane that the divide of how they're treated depending on how they look, and it needs to change. It's just insane. It's heartbreaking. It's just so sad.
I'm thinking about my niece who was born in China and her son who is 7 years old, and how helpless I feel to protect them. And how all these people who've lost their lives, they have family who tried to protect them and couldn't. It reminds me of how universal our experience can be. Very, very sad.
Ideas about what you all might do when you go back to your congregation?
Well, for one thing, we have, it's a small thing, but we have written a letter of support from the Allies group to the people of Asian and Pacific Island descent, saying we want them, we love them and want them to remain in our community, and we will do what we can to protect them. It's just a beginning, but We haven't delivered that letter yet, but we will in the next couple of days, I think. But your suggestions are helpful, and we'll try to think outside the box a little more.
Do you have folks that are API in your community, correct?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever had created a scholarship so that they could attend drum events, or if they are religious professionals, finding our way home? So drum is the Diverse Revolutionary Unitarian Universalist Multicultural Ministries, and it annually holds a gathering for anyone, BIPOC, UU, and pre-pandemic was in different parts of the country, and we had some funding but not a whole lot. And so I know if you all are reading Widening the Circle of Concern, those are the kind of actions in there. Provide financial support so that people of color in your communities and your congregations can attend these things, can be in communities of color.
Hmm.
And totally decolonize it. There,
Yeah.
like, no, like, I had a lady ask me, I texted someone and I said, here's all the food I have today. Please come and take what you need. And her response was, I don't have my son this week. Do I still qualify? And I said, the only qualifications are you a person? So many times in our organization, we provide a scholarship for something, for youth, for adults, but we require them to attend all the business meetings, come back and give a report,
Oh.
right? There's strings attached.
Oh.
Just give it.
Yeah. Actually, we do offer that on a small scale, sort of a one-by-one thing as we become aware of a need among people to attend those the gathering, like what you were referring to, the blue.
Well, there's blue too. That's just for Black UUs.
Yeah. And because of the foundation set up by some wealthy people in our congregation before they died, we do support a local high school to give everyone who graduates, and they're mostly people of color, an opportunity to go to college.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know that we are going to 9:15, and also know that when we have caucus space, we don't interrupt it, and we let that go as long as it needs. So I think
Yeah.
what we are going to do is I'm going to ask Vincent to play our next song, and give a little introduction to it. Lynn Mendoza Khan is an amazing musician in Unitarian Universalism and outside, and a friend of mine. She was the choir director here in San Diego for the women's choir and the children's choir and youth choir, and really helped my son come into his own as a singer. And on March 11th, I was part of a group of multi-faith religious professionals that hosted a COVID memorial on the 1-year anniversary of the pandemic. And I reached out to Lynn and asked if she had any songs that would work. And she wrote this song about loss. And while it was specifically written for that, it still really works for this service as well. So we will be hearing an original piece by Lynn Mendoza Khan called Holes. And then I will give a closing prayer from Jessica York, who is a UA staff member.
In my sorrow, how will I ever live with these holes deep within me? In my sorrow, these holes are empty, painful, hard to get up in the morning. In my sorrow, these holes are endless, haunting, never letting me go. I live with these holes. There's one more name and another. These names just keep piling on to another one gone, and I feel so helpless to this situation. It keeps going on and on and on and on and on and on.
So this is a prayer by Jessica York called Gird Thyself. This is not a prayer that you may find hope, for hope is a luxury that some cannot find and others cannot afford. This is not a prayer that you find more love in the world, though I hope you continue to feel love and send love to those near and far. I pray instead that you may find tools. A hammer lying half hidden in the grass, a roll of duct tape curled up and forgotten on a high shelf in the back of the closet, a wrench poking out of the pocket of a stranger. Take these tools and gird thyself. A hammer for justice, duct tape to hold together your broken heart, a wrench to grip and provide advantage in applying torque to turn objects or to turn the world. Take these tools and others you may find in places expected and unexpected. Take these tools and gird thyself, for weeping may last through the night, but the work begins in the morning.